I found myself in a situation that felt like a nightmare, one that I never thought I would experience. My sister, whom I had always considered a part of my life, had become the source of my deepest betrayal. To give you some context, I'm 32 years old, and until recently, I was engaged to my boyfriend of 5 years, whom I'll refer to as Jake. My younger sister, whom I'll call Lily, is 29 and has always been the star of our family. To truly understand the depth of this betrayal, I need to share some background about my family dynamics and how we reached this point. Growing up, Lily could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. I, on the other hand, was constantly criticized and punished for the smallest mistakes. This wasn't just typical sibling rivalry, it was blatant favoritism. If Lily broke something, I would be blamed. If she started a fight, I would be the one grounded. Even when we both excelled academically, she would receive lavish rewards while I got nothing more than a pat on the back. My parents, Mark and Susan, always had excuses for their behavior. Lily is younger, she needs more attention, they would say, or you should know better, you're the older sibling. The constant gaslighting made me feel worthless and unwanted in my own home. As we grew older, the favoritism became even more pronounced. When I was accepted into a reputable college on a partial scholarship, my parents barely acknowledged it. In contrast, when Lily decided to attend a community college, they threw her a grand celebration and even bought her a car. Meanwhile, I had been biking 5 miles each way to my part-time job for years. I moved out as soon as I could to escape the toxic environment, working multiple jobs and taking out loans to support myself through college. Lily, however, dropped out after just 1 semester, claiming that college wasn't for her. My parents praised her for being true to herself, even financing her series of failed business ventures over the next few years. Despite my efforts to distance myself from my family, they always found a way to pull me back in. Holiday dinners were filled with subtle jabs and comparisons. "Oh, you're still in that entry-level job? Well, Lily is thinking about starting another business, she's so entrepreneurial." It was infuriating, especially since I was building a stable career while Lily squandered our parents' savings. I tried to maintain a relationship with her, but it always felt one-sided. I would reach out, but she would either ignore me or turn the conversation into a competition. If I got a promotion, she would suddenly have a big opportunity lined up. If I started dating someone, she would inevitably be in a serious relationship soon after. I met Jake while trying to reconnect with Lily. He was a friend of one of her fleeting boyfriends, and we hit it off immediately. Jake was everything I had ever wanted: intelligent, funny, kind, and incredibly attractive. We began dating, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly happy and appreciated. My parents, however, were not thrilled. They made snide comments about Jake being out of my league and questioned what he saw in me. Lily, on the other hand, seemed genuinely interested in my life, constantly asking about Jake and wanting to know everything about him. At the time, I was just relieved that she appeared to care about my happiness. Looking back, I should have recognized the warning signs. After a year of dating, Jake and I moved in together, and it was wonderful. We both had solid careers, traveled together, and talked about our future. I began to believe that I could finally have the life I had always dreamed of: a fulfilling career, a loving partner, and maybe even a family someday. I proposed to Jake on our 4th anniversary during a simple dinner at home, and I was overjoyed when he said yes. We decided to have a long engagement, taking our time to plan the wedding. We had our whole lives ahead of us, or so I thought. When we shared the news of our engagement with my family, their reactions were mixed. My mother forced a smile and said, "Oh, how lovely," in a tone that suggested otherwise. My father grunted a half-hearted "good luck with that" before returning to the television. Lily's reaction was the most peculiar. She congratulated us, but there was something unsettling about her smile, almost predatory. I brushed it off at the time, attributing it to my own insecurities. The following year was filled with wedding planning and work stress. Jake and I were both putting in long hours to save for the wedding and a down payment on a house. We didn't see each other as often as we used to, but I thought it was just a phase that every couple goes through. In hindsight, I should have noticed the signs. Jake became increasingly distant, often on his phone. I arrived at the scene to find my parents already there. It seemed my sister, whom I'll call Lily, had called them first, spinning a tale about how Jake had seduced her and how remorseful she was. And you know what? They believed her. They always do. My mother immediately began lecturing me about the importance of forgiveness in family, while my father stood there with his arms crossed, looking disappointed in me but not in his precious Lily. I tried to explain what had actually happened, but they wouldn't listen. They kept insisting that I needed to forgive Lily and support her through her pregnancy because, after all, family comes first. That was it. Years of pent-up resentment and anger erupted from me. I told them exactly how I felt about their twisted sense of loyalty, how they had always favored Lily over me, and how they had never taken my side or supported me. I told Lily that she was no longer my sister, that she had died to me. I told my parents they could have the daughter they had always wanted because, as far as I was concerned, I was done with them. I stormed off, ignoring their cries and pleas for me to stay. I drove for hours with no destination in mind, just wanting to escape everything and everyone. When I finally got home, I found dozens of missed calls and messages. Jake was begging for another chance, while Lily alternated between apologies and accusations. Most of the messages came from my parents, demanding that I grow up and make amends. I ignored them all, barely eating or sleeping. I called out of work, using up all my vacation days. I couldn't face anyone or handle the thought of explaining what had happened. Instead, I sat in my apartment, replaying every detail of my relationship with Jake and every interaction with Lily, trying to figure out where I had gone wrong. It's been 3 months since that day. I've moved to a new apartment, changed my phone number, and started therapy to help me cope with everything. But my family won't give up. Despite my efforts to cut off communication, they continue to intrude into my life. They've started showing up at my workplace, attempting to ambush me and push for reconciliation. My mother confronted me in the parking lot, crying about how I was tearing the family apart. My father left harsh voicemails telling me to toughen up and forgive Lily. Lily herself has tried to approach me several times, but I've managed to avoid her so far. They've even sent relatives I haven't spoken to in years to guilt-trip me into forgiving Lily. Aunts, uncles, and cousins are suddenly calling, telling me how important family is and how I should let bygones be bygones. It's as if they're living in a different reality where Lily and Jake made a small mistake rather than a life-altering betrayal. Yesterday, I received a message from Jake. He's having the baby with Lily and intends to co-parent with her. And guess what? My parents are overjoyed to become grandparents, completely forgetting the harsh remarks they used to make when Jake was with me. His message was filled with apologies and explanations, claiming that he and Lily had discovered true love through this terrible situation. He even had the audacity to suggest that he hoped we could all be friends for the sake of the child. I'm at my wit's end. Part of me wishes to sever all ties and start over somewhere else, maybe move to another state, change my identity, and create a new life where no one knows about this mess. But another part of me is so outraged that I want to stay and fight to show them how twisted this situation really is. I don't know what to do now. The betrayal has affected every aspect of my life. I can't stand being alone with my thoughts. I haven't even considered dating again. The idea of trusting someone like that terrifies me. I've also lost friends over this, those who believe I should take the high road and reunite with my family, as if I'm the villain for refusing to play happy families with the people who have hurt me the most. The thought of Jake and Lily raising a child together, a child who should have been mine, is like a constant stab in my gut. I know, logically, that the child is innocent in all of this. It's not the baby's fault that its parents are deceitful. But I can't bring myself to feel good about its existence. My parents have started discussing how I should be involved in the child's life and how I will become an aunt. The idea makes me feel physically ill. How can I look at this child and not see the ultimate symbol of my sister's betrayal? So, I guess my question is, am I the bad person for refusing to forgive my sister and ex-fiancé? Am I wrong for wanting to cut ties with my family over this? Any advice on how to proceed would be greatly appreciated. My focus is on recovering and moving forward. Thank you again, Reddit. Your support has helped me more than you realize. Your encouragement and suggestions have given me a lot to think about, and they have truly been a lifeline during this tough time. I may not be able to respond to every comment, but please know that I read them all, and they are making me feel less alone in this situation. Hello again, Reddit. It's been about 2 weeks since my last post, and it has been a complete roller coaster. First and foremost, thank you all for your immense support and suggestions. I never anticipated my post would go viral, and going through all of your responses has been both upsetting and oddly reassuring. It's disturbing how common this type of betrayal is. The last several weeks have been incredibly challenging. Remember how I mentioned I was working on obtaining a restraining order? That turned into a huge ordeal. My lawyer filed the paperwork, and we had a hearing scheduled. I assumed it would be straightforward given the evidence and the ongoing harassment, but I was mistaken. My parents showed up at the court with their own lawyer, a fancy woman in an expensive suit who likely charges more per hour than I do in a week. They tried to paint me as the crazy one, claiming I was tearing the family apart over a simple misunderstanding, as if Lily had just stumbled and fallen into my fiancé. Fortunately, the judge didn't buy their story. She issued the restraining order against Lily and my parents, but only after my mother broke down in tears in court and my father glared at me as if I had committed a crime. The look on Lily's face, though, I swear, if looks could kill, I would be dead. As we were leaving the courthouse, Lily attempted to approach me, but my lawyer stepped in between us, reminding her of the newly issued restraining order. Lily merely scoffed and said this wasn't over, that I couldn't hide behind a piece of paper forever. I'd be lying if I said her words didn't shake me, but at least I had some legal protection. The job situation has been another nightmare. Remember when I mentioned my family showing up at my workplace? That came to a head last week. I was in a meeting with a client when my assistant alerted me that my mother was in the lobby, causing a scene. Apparently, she had brought a photo album and was trying to show my coworkers baby pictures of Lily and me while lamenting about how close we used to be. I excused myself from the meeting and went down to the lobby, where I found my mother surrounded by a group of uncomfortable-looking coworkers. She was in the middle of telling a story about how Lily and I used to bathe together as toddlers when she noticed me. She tried to rush toward me, talking about a baby shower, but I interrupted her. I told her she had to leave immediately or I would call the police and have her removed for trespassing and violating the restraining order. Her expression was one of shock, as if I had slapped her, but after everything they had put me through, I couldn't bring myself to care. Security escorted her out, and I spent the next hour doing damage control with my employer and co-workers. Fortunately, most of them understood, but I could tell some were wondering what kind of drama I was bringing into the office. But it was the fight with Lily that really threw everything off track. Last Saturday, I was at the gym, trying to release some of my frustration on the punching bag. I was so focused on my training that I didn't notice someone approaching until I heard her voice. I turned around, and there was Lily, smirking at me as if she hadn't just broken the restraining order. She began speaking loudly enough for anyone nearby to hear. I ordered her to leave before I called the police, but she laughed and said she'd tell them how I had threatened her and Jake. That was when I lost it. I swiped at her, my fist landing on her jaw. She stumbled backward before lunging at me, and we ended up on the floor, trading blows like we were kids again. This time, there were no parents to separate us, no one telling me to be the bigger person and let Lily win. I got in a few solid hits before the gym staff intervened. Lily's nose was bleeding, and I could feel my own swelling shut. We were both screaming, trying to get free and get back at each other. The gym manager threatened to call the cops, which ultimately snapped me out of it. I grabbed my belongings and fled. I was driving home, still shaking from the adrenaline, when I received a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Jake was shouting at me about how I had broken Lily's nose and that she might need surgery. I couldn't help but laugh. The absurdity of him being upset with me after everything they had done was just too situation. I told him that I couldn't believe he had the audacity to send me a letter like that after everything that had happened. I expressed my disgust at how he and Lily were living their lives as if they hadn't just shattered mine. I told him that I would never be able to find it in my heart to be happy for them, especially not for a child that was a product of their betrayal. I hung up before he could respond, my heart racing with anger and adrenaline. After that call, I felt a mix of satisfaction and rage. I'd be lying if I said none of this was impacting me. I started taking long drives at night to escape my apartment, sometimes finding myself parked outside my old place, the one I shared with Jake, wondering how my life had spiraled so far out of control. In the midst of this chaos, I received support from an unexpected source, Jake's younger brother, Evan. He reached out to me on social media, apologizing for his brother's actions and offering his support. At first, I was skeptical. What if this was just another trick? But after talking with him, I realized he was just as disgusted by Jake's behavior as I was. He kept me updated on what was happening in Jake and Lily's lives, and it seemed they had moved in together, living as if they hadn't just destroyed multiple lives to be together. Evan told me that Jake was trying to portray himself as the victim, crying to anyone who would listen about how he never intended to hurt anyone and how he and Lily were soulmates who found each other against all odds. It made me sick to my stomach, but I appreciated Evan keeping me in the loop. After all, information is power, even if it's knowledge I would prefer not to have. The social media environment has been a nightmare. I've always been a private person, but this situation has thrust me into the unwanted spotlight. Someone, probably one of Lily's friends, posted about our gym altercation on a local Facebook page. The post didn't mention our names, but it described the incident in enough detail for anyone who knew us to figure it out. The comments section became a battleground. Some people defended me, claiming Lily got what she deserved, while others labeled me as unstable and said I needed to be locked up. I made the mistake of scrolling through some of the comments one night after having too many drinks, and it was a huge mistake. I ended up hurling my phone across the room so hard that the screen cracked. Since then, I've cancelled most of my social media profiles. I can't deal with the constant notifications and messages from people I haven't spoken to in years who suddenly want to know all the juicy details about my life. With everything that has happened, I've realized that I cannot stay in this city any longer. There are too many memories and too many chances to run into Jake, Lily, or my parents. I've started looking for internal transfers, and there's a promising opportunity in our Seattle office. It's not ideal, I've never been a fan of constant rain, but at this point, I'd move to the moon to escape all of this turmoil. I haven't made any final decisions yet, but the idea of a fresh start is becoming increasingly appealing. New city, new apartment, new life, where no one recognizes me as the woman whose fiancé got her sister pregnant. My parents have been unusually silent since the restraining order was granted. I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop, for them to find a new way to force their way back into my life. Jake has been spreading the word about Lily's pregnancy far and wide. Evan tells me he's been posting constant updates on social media, ultrasound photos, belly shots, and so on, along with messages about how blessed he and Lily are and how excited they are to start their family. Each new piece of information feels like a fresh wound, triggering the pain just as I thought I was beginning to recover. So, that's where things stand right now. 2 weeks ago, I thought my life couldn't possibly get any worse, yet it has. I'm still angry and hurt, but I'm also weary. I'm tired of justifying myself. So, Reddit, I suppose this is less of an update and more of a cry into the void. I'm not sure what I'm asking for right now: advice, sympathy, or maybe even a time machine that would allow me to never introduce Jake to my sister. Whatever happens next, I'll do my best to keep you all informed. Your encouragement has meant more to me than you can realize. It's nice to be reminded that there are still good people in the world, even when it feels like everything is filled with betrayal and deceit. Final update: hello, Reddit. It's been a week since my last update, and I'm here with what I hope will be my final post on this entire disaster. I told him he was out of his mind if he thought I would ever want to be involved with that child. I made it clear that he, Lily, and the baby could all go to hell. It wasn't my finest moment, but I felt like I finally unleashed everything I had been holding back. That's when I realized I couldn't stay in this city any longer. That same night, I called my supervisor and informed her that I wanted to transfer to Seattle. She sounded relieved. Honestly, I think she was worried about how all this drama would affect the company. She promised to expedite the paperwork, and by the next morning, it was official. I had 2 weeks to pack up my belongings and relocate across the country. My family and social circle were quick to learn about my move. My parents, unsurprisingly, were outraged. They showed up at my place unexpectedly, once again breaking the restraining order in an attempt to talk me out of it. My mother was in tears, accusing me of abandoning the family, while my father was furious, yelling at me for being selfish and immature. I didn't engage, I simply called the police and had them removed for violating the restraining order. As they were escorted out, my mother yelled that I would regret this decision, that family was everything, and that I was wasting it. I immediately closed the door and returned to packing. Lily reacted differently. She didn't try to contact me directly, likely due to the ongoing legal issues, but she did post a lengthy message on social media about how some people can't handle seeing others happy and how she and Jake were rising above the hate to focus on their new family. It was clearly aimed at me, and I'll admit it stung to see how many people liked and commented in her favor. But I reminded myself that their opinions were meaningless because they didn't know the truth. Jake's response was the most surprising. After our phone call, he reached out to his brother, Evan, who had been keeping me updated on their situation. Apparently, my words had a greater impact than I had imagined. Evan informed me that Jake had broken down, admitting that he realized what he and Lily had done was terrible and that he was scared of the future. My cousin Amy, bless her, offered to help me pack. She also filled me in on what was happening with the family. Amy told me that my aunt, my mother's sister, had a heated argument with my mother, accusing her of always favoring Lily and pushing me away. My aunt complained that my parents were now reaping the consequences of their years of favoritism. I can't say I wasn't relieved to hear that someone was finally calling them out for their behavior. My lawyer assures me that my move will have no effect on the legal case, which is still pending. We are pursuing charges against Lily for violating the restraining order and defending against the assault accusations she brought against me. My lawyer seems confident that the judge will see through Lily's arguments, especially considering her history of breaching the restraining order. The fact that I'm moving across the country should also demonstrate that I'm not a threat to her, which may help get her charges dropped. I don't know if I'll post any further updates after this. Part of starting over is putting the past behind me, and as helpful as this community has been, I believe it's time for me to move on from revisiting this narrative. I need to focus on creating my new life rather than obsessing over the past. So, I believe this will be my final update. Wish me luck, everyone. I have a whole new life ahead of me in Seattle, and I intend to make the most of it. Thank you so much for staying with me until the end. If you enjoyed my story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more real-life stories happening around you.